This week, the Center for American Progress released an extraordinarily disturbing fact sheet summarizing an investigation they published that documents 15 separate interlocking tactics the Trump administration, Republican governors, and GOP members of Congress are engaging in to rig this fall's election. Their tactics range from firing the bipartisan election assistant commission's commissioners to encouraging red state voter purges to putting ICE agents outside polling places in clear violation of federal law. The 6 corrupt Republicans on the Supreme Court are also deciding, perhaps this week or next, whether to let Trump's hand-picked Postmaster General have your mailman refuse to deliver your ballot if you're not on Trump's approved voter list. Trump's executive order to do this has been blocked twice by a federal judge, noting that the Constitution is clear that only states run elections, and the executive branch has no authority whatsoever to even try to regulate them. But of course, the plain words of the Constitution, which references the right to vote 6 times, including 5 amendments that say, quote, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged, ... have never been an obstacle for Republicans on the court. Just read the plain text of the 4th and 5th Amendments and compare that to ICE's behavior, which the court is allowing. Sadly, we need to be ready for anything because Republicans now have a 58-year-long record of committing crimes and treason to get their men into the White House. Nixon sabotaged LBJ's Vietnam peace deal just before the election of '68, an event he and Senate Republican leader Everett Dirksen called treason on a phone call that wasn't released until decades after Johnson's death. Because the war continued, Nixon beat Humphrey that year by lying that he had a secret plan to end the war, and an additional 20,000 plus Americans and over an additional million Vietnamese died. Reagan's campaign cut a deal with the Iranian Ayatollah to hold the 52 hostages they'd taken during Carter's presidency until after the election. Iran kept the deal, destroying Carter's chances in the 1980 election, and for 6 years, Reagan secretly and illegally sold them American-made weapons in violation of the law. We remember that as the Iran-Contra scandal. Florida Governor Jeb Bush had 57,000 mostly black Floridians purged from the voting rolls just months before the 2000 election, which let his brother George W. Bush squeak by with a 537-vote margin. When the Florida Supreme Court, smelling a rat, ordered a recount, 5 corrupt Republicans, including Bush's father's nominee, Clarence Thomas, violated the state's rights' 10th Amendment and blocked the recount, putting Bush into the White House, even though a later recount found that Al Gore had won the election. President Jimmy Carter told me on my radio program, quote, "I don't think that George W. Bush won the election in 2000, and he probably lost Florida and nationwide," end quote. And then there was the GOP's theft of the 2024 election. Greg Palast, a reporter with a master's degree in statistics, went through the official state-by-state statistics and found that 4,776,706 voters were wrongly purged from the rolls. 2,121,000 mail ballots were disqualified by Republican challenges. 1,216,000 provisional ballots were thrown away uncounted. 3.24 million new registrations were rejected or never processed, and 585,000 in-person ballots were spoiled. He found black voters were 4 times as likely as white voters to have their mail ballot rejected. Black, Hispanic, and Asian American voters were more than 3 times as likely as white people to be given provisional ballots that were never counted. Had that voter suppression not worked, he concluded, Kamala Harris would be president, and the House and Senate may well be in Democratic hands. So here we go again, only this time state-by-state voter suppression. Remember when Texas AG Ken Paxton told Steve Bannon on the air that if he hadn't blocked Houston from sending out mail-in ballots, Trump would have lost Texas? That is getting a big boost from the feds this time under Trump's control. Trump and his lickspittles have fired or pushed out at least 75 career election security officials. They've gutted the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. They've removed the Election Assistance Commission's commissioners, so the agency is now functionally dead. The Civil Rights Division of the DOJ, now run by an apparatchik devoted to undoing civil rights, has threatened election officials in all 50 states with prison if they make even small errors in running their elections. The DOJ itself has sued more than 30 states trying to seize their voter files. The FBI raided the Fulton County Elections Office with Tulsi Gabbard, then the Director of National Intelligence, standing over the process at the personal direction of Trump himself, as agents hauled away hundreds of boxes of 2020 ballots. Steve Bannon has repeatedly promised, most recently this week, that ICE agents will defy the post-Civil War federal law that bans armed government officials from polling places. And Trump has, on multiple occasions, floated declaring a national emergency or a state of insurrection to shut down this fall's elections, either nationwide or in places where Democratic majorities may win. Back in the old days, Nixon and Reagan at least had the decency to commit their treasonous election thefts in secret. Trump is now bragging about it, telling Congress that if they pass his voter suppression bill to prevent low-income people and married women from voting, quote, we'll never lose a race. For 50 years, we won't lose a race. This is Putin-level corruption, right out in the open. And not a single Republican is pushing back as our national press tries their hardest to avoid discussing it. And we've suffered through 6 illegitimate presidencies in the years since Nixon's 1968 treason, largely because our press has refused to investigate or tell the stories, and Democratic leadership has been too timid to bring it up. You know how Republicans would be reacting if the shoe were on the other foot. This time the press can't claim they didn't realize what was going on, as happened in 68, 1980, 2000, and 2024. Trump and his cronies are doing all this right out in the open, and his advisors like Bannon are crowing about it on TV. So it's time for all of us to raise some hell, letting our friends and neighbors know what's happening, and demand that our elected officials act now to protect our elections. The number for Congress is 202-224-3121. And don't forget to check your voter registration at vote.org, particularly if you live in a red state. We just have a few weeks to go before early voting starts, and we have a hell of a lot of work to do to get out the vote and keep it honest. Tag, we're it.